What is up everyone? Welcome to the first video in about 5-6 weeks. Incredibly embarrassing, massive apologies. Life is just crazy. It's not crazy, it's just a little bit crazy. For my regular viewers, it's past the due date, a couple of days past, and we still haven't met. We still haven't met our new little one, so yeah, we're just waiting. And today I've actually got some time to make a video, so let's make a video. So in today's video, damn it, already low battery. Hang on a second, I'll close the door anyway. That would be something productive. That's better, folks. Let's put this one on charge because we will obviously need it a little bit later on. So today we are going to give my lovely 2006 Core 2 Duo iMac some attention. I've wanted to do this for absolutely ages, and that is partition the drive and get Snow Leopard onto this machine, because Snow Leopard is so much nicer than Lion. So the first thing we're going to do is fire it up. Where the heck is the power button? There we go. Fire it up and see if everything is still functioning okay, so that we can proceed with the partitioning and install. I'm also going to move some of this stuff out of the way. I've got a couple of laptops here chilling. So here we are fired up at the desktop, and don't let the tiger background fool you. This is indeed Lion. Now, of course, this machine can run maximum Lion. That's why it's installed on here. All of these white iMacs, none of them can run any higher than Lion. And if you've got the old Core Duo model, then that'll only run up to Snow Leopard. Now, of course, a lot of people have spoken to me in the comment section in regards to this machine that I own and in regards to my Mac Mini, my 2007 Mac Mini, because these are very similar machines in terms of specs and era. A lot of people have spoken to me about alternative methods of getting newer operating systems running on these machines, and it's something that I've never done, so it's definitely something that I want to try for the channel in the future, but that's not what this video is going to be about. We're going to be stepping back a little bit in time and reinstalling Snow Leopard. It's been a long time since I've used Snow Leopard, and I'm going to treat myself to using one of the most stable releases of Mac OS that has ever been released. Snow Leopard was just gorgeous back in the day, and it's still gorgeous by today's standards, but of course support is a little bit worse than some of the newer releases, to say the least. Now, Lion, you can kind of get away with using it on a day-to-day basis, but it's just not a nice operating system. You don't get a nice, warm, fuzzy Mac feeling while using it. It's not terrible, it's just got to be pretty much the weakest release in the whole lineup, at least in my opinion. And I want to get Snow Leopard on here because I also desperately want Rosetta. Now, there's this awkward transition period. A lot of the applications that are supported in Snow Leopard on Intel machines won't work on Lion because they're PowerPC applications, they're native PowerPC, so you need Rosetta to get them up and running. I own a lot of applications like that, so you're very limited to what you can run on here. You can't run the old stuff, but you can't really run the new stuff either. So you're between a rock and a hard place when you install Lion. But you know, the support isn't crazy bad. You can still get a vaguely modern version of Spotify up and running, which is probably more than can be said for the Spotify version that'll run on Snow Leopard. I don't even know. It's something that we'll experiment with later. And Spotify is an application that I use a lot on this iMac, so that's why I'm partitioning this drive as opposed to... Is this keyboard working? What the heck is going on? It doesn't appear to be. I think maybe I've got low battery, which would suck because I don't think I've got any AA's. The wireless stuff is convenient, but yeah, I really don't get along with it. So when I was just about to begin recording this video, I went over to my rack of DVDs and my boxes of software and remembered that I currently do not own Snow Leopard. I technically own it, and I know I own it because it is the first ever legitimate Mac operating system that I bought, or rather, I got it for my birthday all the way back in 2009. If you guys watched me back then, you know I had a MacBook and I couldn't afford Leopard. So I had a white MacBook, it came from the factory with Tiger, and when Leopard came out, it was such a massive jump. There were incredible features that everybody wanted. So everybody jumped ship from Tiger to Leopard. You got Time Machine, you got Spaces, you got Quick Look. The whole interface was just so much more modern looking. But I was stuck on Tiger. I couldn't afford Leopard. It was like 70 quid. And 2009, how old was I don't know, 15 or something? So when Snow Leopard came out, it was way more affordable. And Apple told everyone that if you were a Tiger user, you had to buy, I think it was called the Family Pack, or what was it called? There was a complete bundle available, and it came with Snow Leopard, iLife and iWork. Of course, iWork and iLife 09, and that was into the triple figures in terms of cost, I believe. But they didn't tell you that you could just buy the normal Snow Leopard disc and install it from Tiger. It worked fine. I mean, obviously it would, because you can just erase your drive and install it anyway, so it makes no difference. But cutting a massively long story short, before I get bogged down with nostalgia, I don't have that disc anymore. I lent it to someone at least 4 years ago and I've not had it back. So I had to brave the rough end of the web, which is torrents, man. I had to brave that today, and it has been a while since I've tried to download an operating system, and my god, has it turned into something that is just nowhere near fun anymore. Back in the day when I used to download all of my operating systems and software to make videos about and stuff, it was a fun process, you had to work at it a little bit, but it was pretty easy. Now it's just tedious and crap. But I've got a speedy download coming of Snow Leopard. It won't be that long, it's only taken about 10 minutes. Thank God for the surprisingly active torrent, and also thank God for my surprisingly stable internet connection. So we're going to wait for that to download. We're going to try and find some batteries for my keyboard, because I am going to need it. And also burn it to a disc. We're going to install it from DVD. Here we are, folks. It was called the Mac box set, and it included iLife 09, iWork 09 and Snow Leopard. So if you were a Tiger user, if you were to phone up Apple in 2009 and ask them, how do I upgrade to Snow Leopard from Tiger, they would tell you to purchase this box set, which is pretty crazy. But it was well documented back when Snow Leopard came out that you could just get the retail DVD, and the beauty of this was it was the first version of OS X that was significantly cheaper than all the other versions. So gone were the days of a £70-80 upgrade. We were talking £29 for this, I believe, which was a steal, because even though Snow Leopard almost looked identical and almost operated identically to Leopard, it was so much cleaner, it was so much more stable and just way more fluid, because of course it was Intel only, so it was pretty much half the size, and it was just cleaned up in every single way, and it had tons of improvements under the hood. So yeah, needless to say, after all these years, I'm pretty excited to install Snow Leopard. So this DMG is a little bigger than it should be, so it's 6.5 gig or something, which is pretty large for Snow Leopard. I can't remember the retail size, but I'll have to burn it onto a dual layer disc, which is a bit of a shame because these are in short supply, but I am being a little bit stingy because it's not as if I use them every single day. But extra problems do arise when using dual layer discs, as if they weren't unreliable enough already, but there we go. So I'm burning using Toast, and Toast is reporting that it's burning 6.14 gigs, so a tiny bit smaller than the actual file size of the download. But I swear from memory that one of the big things with Snow Leopard was it came on a standard DVD. It was the size of a standard DVD, like it only just squeezed on, but it was 4.5 gig or whatever. So I'm not too sure about this one. I'm not too sure how much success we're going to have with this download, but maybe it's a little bit... Oh, hang on a second, hang on. This download did say that it was fully updated. It was the latest release. So in theory, we won't have many updates to do. So yeah, it could well be bigger. I didn't even think about that. Plus, my knowledge is a little bit rusty anyway. It was, it won't be too... Next year's 2018. It was nearly a decade ago that I unpackaged this OS and installed it on my MacBook for the first time, which is scary in itself. Makes me feel really old, but I know I've got people that are a lot older than me that watch my videos, so I guess people get nostalgic about Windows 3.1 or the first Macintosh or the Apple II or whatever, I don't know. But, to me, even this stuff is getting super old now. And naturally, being the Apple SuperDrive, it is burning fairly slowly. By the way, I'm using toast. You all know my feelings on disk utility these days. Absolutely crippled. Talk about taking a beautiful included application and just turning it to complete and utter So this is going to take over 10 minutes, 3% completed. I guess it is fairly large. So I'm just going to wait and maybe find some batteries if I can. Let's just hop into disk utility, and while that disk is preparing over there, we'll prepare our drive. So let's quit that for a second actually. The first thing I'm going to do to make life a lot easier, because I don't want to confuse myself, I'm a little bit out of practice with this nerdy stuff, folks. It's been very much a lot of work lately, non-nerdy work. So I'm just going to call that Lion because I don't want to get confused. And you know, it would make sense if we call the other partition Snow Leopard. I love that, you know, the beauty of the Mac. You can just rename a partition. You've, you know, renamed a whole partition just by renaming a little icon on the desktop. Anyway, let's move over into partition. Of course, what I'm going to do is hit the plus button. Because we want a second partition now. As you guys can see, we've got a 250 gig drive in this machine. I've used barely anything. I'm not storing anything locally on the machine other than applications and a few tiny bits and bobs. Naturally, it's hooked up to the network, so I've got access to all of my files anyway, so it makes no difference as to the size of the partitions and drives in this machine. If I look at my life in a realistic way at the moment, there is no hope in hell that I will have the time or energy to open this up to replace the drive for an SSD, so that's why I'm doing this now as opposed to waiting for a drive upgrade in the future. I'm happy with half and half completely, so you know, we got roughly 120 gigs for each OS. That suits me down to the ground. The first one is the one we're booted into at the moment, of course, that's Lion, and then the second one is going to be our new partition, and that is going to be Snow Leopard. We get just under 125 gigs, which is cool. By the way, my keyboard started working pretty much straight away, so I don't need batteries. My one-hand typing is notoriously slow. I would love to have the skill of being able to type quickly with one hand. You know, not like mega quickly, but just like, you know, enough so that I can use my other hand for something else and glide across the keyboard naturally. I will mention something about this keyboard. A good buddy of mine that I'm going to refer to as DJ Jones, he sold me this keyboard in good faith, but buddy, if you're watching this video, I freaking know that you've spilt something on it and you neglected to tell me, because these keys on the bottom are mushy as hell. But I'm not angry at you, I don't mind. That's all good. If this was the keyboard for my main machine, then I would be angry, but I don't mind as it is. And you're a good buddy, so yeah, we'll let that one slide. But you definitely spilt something on here, man. I can feel it. I can feel it. So we are going to apply and partition within the machine itself, which is extremely groovy. This is how disk utility should operate. I know I was slagging off Lion, but I would take this disk utility any day over the complete mess that ships with modern versions of macOS. And it's quite ironic that I'm pointing at a machine that is significantly older than this one, but for those of you who haven't watched my 2015 series, that is indeed a Hackintosh. So it's a nice is it a Haswell system in there? God, I don't even know. i7 4770. What generation is that? I don't know. Andy Bridge, Ivy Bridge. What came next? It is indeed Haswell. My gosh, I really need to get back on it, folks. Yeah, although that was a 4770K, I've got a non-K in that Hackintosh. The cases are so small anyway, even though it's got an all-in-one liquid cooler on it, I would never dream of overclocking it. In the summer, it certainly does rev up a little. Disk utility is extraordinarily quick at partitioning a drive, and something that is pretty cool about this is we now essentially have two roughly 120 gig drives, and that was the drive that was in my MacBook back in the day, a 120 gigabyte drive. So yeah, even more nostalgia creeping in there. So as you guys can see, Snow Leopard partition has appeared on our desktop. That is all well and good and completely empty. So we are done in this side of things. We can quit out of that. We'll quit Spotify as well. Let's check on the burn. Burn is actually going quicker than it said it would, so I'm very happy about that. Come on. Yeah, baby, come on. Let's go. Oh yeah, okay, go on. Oh god. I think it's important to point out that those seconds weren't exactly telling the truth. All of those seconds felt like about 1 3/4. Not quite 2 seconds each, but 1 3/4 maybe. 1 2/3. Writing lead out 30% completed. Brilliant. You don't even get seconds on this part, although it did just jump to 100%. Ping, ready, let's go, rock and roll. Right on cue, that couldn't have been perfecter, more perfect. It couldn't have been better. Okay, straight live. You guys can see freshly burnt. Look how much space is being used on that dual layer disc. You guys can see live here in person, no cuts. The same disc is being inserted into the iMac. Let's go. Wrong side. Okay, don't worry, this is all good. As you can see, this has all been planned. Okay. Ah, great. Crunch. Makes a nice noise. Here it is. Has it, whoops, has it burnt correctly? Let's take a look. Ah, do you know, that doesn't look correct. Oh, Christ. That is not good at all. You know, it wasn't meant to do that. I knew that was wrong because normally you get the picture of the little cat. Okay, let's try and restart and see if it recognises that boot, which it will not. I've got a feeling we're going to be burning this again. Option. I've got a big feeling we're going to be burning this again. Which is... oh, wireless keyboard again, do you think? Has it done its thing? It won't connect that early, I need a wired one. Oh great, now I've got low battery. We're on the 3rd battery, look, check it out. This battery hasn't even finished charging yet. Okay. That's one thing about this camera, folks. I love everything about this camera apart from the batteries. Right, so, wired keyboard, that's not a problem. We have one here. Here's one I prepared earlier. Let's move this one out of the way because it's being a little bit awkward. By the way, my last video about that ThinkPad, thank you for all the support everyone and the lovely comments. It is a really nice laptop. Unfortunately I haven't had the time that I thought I would over the summer to configure it as my lighting desk, but all in good time, I do fire it up occasionally because I find the touchscreen very comfortable to use browsing around the web. It's very nice. Okay, let's plug that keyboard in. And I know this isn't going to work. I know it for a fact, folks. I really do. Because that disc has not burnt correctly. And it doesn't surprise me, actually, because I'm using a version of Toast that I've never used before. The interface is different, so guaranteed I've done something wrong. And I used to burn all of these Mac operating system discs in Disk Utility anyway, but I've just given myself a brand spanking new fresh idea. I'm probably going to burn the next one. If this disc doesn't work, which it definitely will not, I'm probably going to burn the next one using the iMac itself. So let's wait until it pops into the boot menu here. Naturally I am delaying it, but it's also waiting. Yeah, it's not going to do anything with the disc, folks. It really isn't. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put that Snow Leopard DMG on the server. We're going to retrieve it from the Lion install and we're going to burn it on the iMac. Let's just hope that the iMac burns dual layer DVDs. We are copying the DMG over to my Monster RAID, and I'm doing that just so I can show you guys the speed. I get a lot of questions on the network videos in regards to the speed of transferring a file over the network to that system, because obviously there's a hefty bottleneck in the Firewire 400 connection between the Mac Mini and the RAID. But as you guys can see, it travels along fairly substantially considering the Firewire 400 connection. Of course, when I change out the Mac Mini, I should see a fair increase in this speed. Well, because that'll be Firewire 800, so it won't be double the speed because, you know, Firewire is just obviously one of the bottlenecks here, but yeah, there we go. You know, it travels along a little bit and it's fine for me. We're talking about 3 or 4 minutes for a nearly 7 GB file, so yeah, not bad, but looking forward to a bit of an upgrade. So we now need another dual layer disk, and I know people are going to comment on methods of slimming down the disk image and maybe delving in and deleting some of the crud that I don't need. That's not the right thing at all. That's a CD. But I am purely trying to do this as easily and as simply as possible, and it's going to take me a few videos to get back into the geeky zone. You guys would not believe some of the anti-geeky stuff I've been doing. I sometimes walk in this room and almost forget what some of my own equipment is. It's got to that level of like, okay, what the heck is that lead doing there? Why have I set that up in such a way I physically cannot remember? Which is embarrassing to say the least, but let's retrieve this disc out of here, and I think the best way to do that is just boot up into Lion and eject it properly, and then we can launch it in the bin. This one is no good. As you guys know, I messed it up. I could blame Toast, but I'm not going to blame Toast. I'm going to blame myself. I was probably rushing, I selected the wrong option, it's not bootable, and you can't even open the ISO on the disc. It's not a rewritable disc, so I'm afraid there's only one place for this, and that's over there. I was not expecting that to actually go in the bin. Okay, I'm pretty chuffed about that. So here's a blank disc, unless I've mixed them up. I put them both down on the table, so let's hope not. I'm going to pop this in here, and we are going to see if we can burn this on the iMac itself. I don't see why not. It's a fairly modern machine, and it's not the lowest of lowest ends, so it should do okay with a dual layer disc. So we're copying that back from the server onto the iMac's hard drive, just so the burn is as quick as possible. You may be wondering, why didn't I just copy it directly from the my Hackintosh, where I downloaded it, to the iMac? Well, that is because I wanted to store the DMG. If it is a successful DMG, I'll mark it as green, which is what I do with all of the operating systems I download. Yeah, I do that to all the operating systems I download. So, for instance, if I install Snow Leopard and if it works great, I'll mark it as green in my list so I know that it works fine. So yeah, I've got it stored. I'm not going to get my retail copy back anytime soon, I don't think, because the person I lent it to, I never, ever see him, which is a shame. But yeah, here we go. It's copying back off, and then we can attempt the burn. And we're going to obviously attempt the burn with disk util, because if there's anything that's going to do it on this machine, it'll be a good old-fashioned copy of disk utility. And as part of my approach to always thinking ahead and always being prepared, I've just slotted in my third 2TB archive disk, which is probably nearly full by now, to offload some of my Final Cut library, because wherever the Final Cut library is dangling back there somewhere, at least I hope it is, because I don't remember taking it anywhere else. Where the heck is it? That little drive. Can you guys... Ah, there it is. It's right there. That's my Final Cut library just dangling there. Yeah, I need to offload from it because I'm running out of space to edit. Alright guys, it is burning. It is doing its thing. Looks like it recognises the disk just fine. I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but it is burning it, so I am happy about that. I think this is going to take quite a while on the iMac. It's going to go at 2.4 times speed apparently, so it'll be a little while burning that 6.5 gig file. But once it's burnt, we should definitely be in luck, I reckon. Man, this is taking a long time, but because it's burning at such a slow speed, it's really quiet, you can barely hear it. It's taking such a long time that I've managed to edit nearly all of what you guys have just seen, but Final Cut has just given out into Beach Ball. Reason behind that is probably due to the fact that the transfer is nearly complete over to the hard drive over there, so that's okay. We're now at the verifying stage on the iMac, which is good because it didn't fail the burn, so I'm assuming that the whole track is written. To be perfectly honest, folks, I'm going to skip it. I'm going to risk the skip because I just want to see if it's going to work. I really do. So it's ejected. That's cool. I'm going to bring over my chair. Let's see what it does. The machine is struggling to read the disc now that I've put it back in. It's making some right crunching noises, but I don't see why it... There we go. There we go. That's better, folks. That is much, much better. That's what you want to see after burning an OS disk. So, cool. It's handy having machines like this around just for these purposes. I mean, obviously I could have pulled off burning it on that machine, but it was just so much simpler doing it this way. You can't use this version of the application. Install macOS 10 with this version of macOS 10. That's because I'm on a newer version than is listed there, but that's okay. Because we just have to restart the machine now. Now that we know the disk is working, we can access the disk from the boot menu regardless. So very, very happy that that has apparently worked. I'm not going to celebrate quite yet because obviously that's only the very first hurdle. Getting through the install is an entirely different matter. My last sort of install saga was definitely the G3 project, which by the way will be making a return. I've got lots left to do on it. Come on boot menu, hurry up. Come on camera, focus. And come on battery, last long enough to show this working. There we go, fantastic. So let's boot up from it right now. Bang. There we go. I'm going to change my battery. While my iMac is crunching away in the background, I did put out a selfie just to welcome myself back into the gang, and I asked for replies, so huge thank you to everyone that's replied. As you can see, this very professional screen recording is working extraordinarily well. Todd, how's it going, Todd, man? Maybe blue and white Power Mac stuff. Blue and white Power Mac stuff to come, definitely, man, definitely. I have been watching a grand total of 0 YouTube videos over the last couple of months, but I will check out your channel as soon as I get back on that, buddy. I've been missing all of the nerdy videos. Let's take a look. Loads of replies considering the time of posting. How's it going, everyone? Thank you for all the support. Can you guys hear my mouse and the iMac sort of harmonizing in crunch? Good to see you guys. Oh my word, already, look at that. Now, I get very nostalgic about installing Tiger. It's the first operating system that I installed. When I bought my MacBook, I needed to do a fresh install because there were a few little hiccups here and there. I bought my MacBook secondhand. Still, to this day, I've never revealed where I got it and the price I paid. Or did I reveal it in a stream? I think I may have with James. Hang on, no, okay. Anyway, I'll have to ask him, he'll remember. So, yeah, but I haven't installed Snow Leopard for years. So just seeing this background. Now, if you guys rewind, put yourself in my shoes. We're talking 2009. I'm 15 years old, just turned 15 or whatever. And I'm really into my Macs. I've just started this YouTube channel. I've been doing it for, under a year. And I've been stuck on Tiger, desperately wanting the new features, suffering, well, not suffering, I love Tiger as an OS, looking back it was awesome, but at the time, I really wanted Leopard. I had my MacBook for like a year and a half with Tiger while Leopard was out, and then I put in the disc and I was greeted with this screen. It was super, super nice, the gorgeous new background, and as soon as you go through this part, you get the gorgeous menu bar and all of the lovely new buttons continue. Just imagine me seeing that and how I felt. In fact, I've got a Snow Leopard install video on my channel. It's super old, but it's there, so yeah. Anyway, you guys can see our partitions. We have Lion and Snow Leopard. Naturally, we're going to install it on Snow Leopard, and we're also going to customize it because this is going to be slow enough as it is, so I think we need to slightly trim things down a little bit. We do not need printer stuff. We really don't. We don't need additional fonts, and we don't need language translations. So that has slimmed down our install size quite a bit. This is a lot bigger than I remembered, guys. That's still like 8 gigs. Why? I thought it was way smaller than that. Anyway, so yeah, Snow Leopard. It's gonna be quite a while, folks. Install is not going to be quick, but it's worth it, and I now own a Snow Leopard DVD, which to our knowledge works just fine. Plus, it's a fully up-to-date one. It's not a retail one, but it's fully up-to-date. So if it asks us to check the DVD, we will naturally skip that. It's reporting a relatively quick install time, but we're not going to let that fool us. Looks like it won't ask to skip the DVD. That must just be a Leopard and before thing. I was dead excited at this point, guys. I really was. Snow Leopard was wonderful. Snow Leopard was the operating system where I really sort of flourished on the Mac. on my MacBook, it was where I first learned Final Cut. And I first really got my teeth sunk into things, and then I sort of reversed a little bit, because when I bought my PowerMac G5, the G5 took over the role as main machine practically. If you guys remember back to my setup back in the day, I had my MacBook and I always had a G4 next to it from around early 2009 when I first got the first Quicksilver. I had a PowerMac that would sit there running things like my email and stuff, and I used the MacBook for everything else. And then when I got the G5 in 2010, it kind of reversed. I was using the G5 for all of the heavy lifting video stuff because it was much more beefy than the MacBook. But of course I was running a Leopard on that machine, but you know, it felt pretty much the same as Snow Leopard. But it was in that little time before I got the G5, I learnt Final Cut on the MacBook. I remember staying up until 3-4 o'clock in the morning just on my MacBook in the dark on my room, in my room on my MacBook, learning Final Cut until the early hours of the morning on school nights, and then just being knackered in school, and just, you know, just teaching myself about video and teaching myself this, that and the other. But yeah, happy, very, very happy memories. And now it's time to install the operating system that is releasing those happy memories. So I can't really believe what I've just done. I was editing the video and I've reached to the end of the clip that you just saw, and I didn't realise Rosetta was an optional selection in the customize menu, which is not selected by default. I've got this terrible habit when it comes to screens like that. You know, I deselect what I know I want to deselect. So I deselected the printer drivers and I just didn't notice it said Rosetta. It was just a small one word. I thought it came as part of the OS. So what I'm hoping is we can install Snow Leopard as is. As you can see, it's nearly done. Then I'm hoping that either we can jump back into the disk itself and install it independently, or worst comes to the worst, boot back in, and hopefully you can choose additional installs and hopefully install that independently of the OS, save installing the whole OS again. I don't see why not. I think that will be possible, but we will have to see. I really just thought it would be there by default, and considering the size, considering it's like, what did it say, 3.5 meg or something tiny, I don't see why it wouldn't be there as default. Install succeeded. Restart. I've had one of those days where I wake up a lot earlier than usual. We had an appointment this morning and it's only 3:05 and I've managed to get so much done today. So I'm just in a really good mood, getting a video done because I haven't had a video out in ages, and just generally having a really good day. So awesome positivity. Just hope this Rosetta thing will work out. Looking forward to seeing the intro video. Of course, Leopard was the last intro video that they made, but they carried on shipping it through Snow Leopard. Man, I miss intro videos these days, and I know that nearly everybody else in the geeky Mac community feels the same way. Good old Snow Leopard booting up quick as hell from a hard drive. Never ran it from an SSD. Very, very little Snow Leopard experience apart from my experience when it was the current OS. It was also installed in college for my first year of college. My first year of college was 2011, and Snow Leopard was still on all the machines there. Of course, Lion hadn't actually come out yet, I don't think. Or it was literally just out or something like that. Second year of college, Lion was on all the machines. Oh man. Apple was so different back then. This is just such a crazily different Apple. Look at that background fade in. Man, just a colossally different vibe I get from Apple these days. It really is. Don't transfer my information. So here we are booted to the Snow Leopard desktop, and I have to say, the Snow Leopard wallpaper is just gorgeous. It really is. It's the Leopard wallpaper on steroids. For the most part, it looks very, very leopardy around this OS. You know, still super leopardy. One of the big things about Snow Leopard, though, that made a real big difference if you're on a low resolution display was the fact that you could scroll in stacks. Before Quick Launch, or whatever it's called, Launchpad, that's it, Launchpad. You know, stacks were a big part of almost every Mac user's life across these 2 revisions of Mac OS X, and being able to scroll in the Snow Leopard stacks made a huge difference. It was really cool. This is also the first release, I believe, where they didn't show your hard disks on the desktop by default. You have to go in and manually enable that, which is something that I am definitely going to do right now, because I find it disorientating when they don't display. All it is just ticking that box just to see them. So let's jump into the disk and see if we can manually install Rosetta, and then our work here will be done. Optional installs. I know that QuickTime 7 is optionally available. Let's have a little look. Not sure if we're going to be able to do this. What's in this installer? Do we know? Oh yeah, baby! There it is, Rosetta. Absolutely tiny, but essential for what I want to do. Okay, I'm very glad that you were able to do that. Let's see how quickly this installs. Should just blast through it. Wonder if it needs a restart. Can't believe I missed it first time round, but luckily we were able to grab it from the disk. And this disk is extraordinarily successful, folks. We've got Snow Leopard. It should be the latest version. Let's check it out. About this Mac. Let's have a look. Oh, what? 10? It is so not the latest version. It said on the torrent that it was fully up to date. That was a complete bunch of codswallop. Anyway, I don't care at this point because the torrent worked fine, so that was obviously my main concern. This is now a very handy disk that I can put on my shelf. Hey, there we go. Well over a gigabyte of updates. So, let's do it. It wanted to blast them away straight away. Restart. And this is a combined OS update, so this will launch us up to the latest version of Snow Leopard pretty instantly. So we are up and running on the latest version of Snow Leopard. It took a very short amount of time. Really pleased about that. So, I'm going to grab a tripod, and we're just going to run a couple of PowerPC apps just so that I can demonstrate what is different between this and Lion in terms of the applications that I can get away with running. I'm just getting my camera angle prepped and copying over some software, folks, and I would just like to say a huge shout out to the man himself, Will LePlank, with a beautiful toilet selfie in response to my less beautiful selfie. This is just pure art, Will. So thank you for applying and supplying us with your selfie. Very much appreciated. And I really like the way that your shoulder is not blocking us from seeing the flush handle itself. So attention to detail definitely involved with this selfie. We've got to have a catch up soon, buddy. Give me a ring on Skype or something. So everybody, this is a prime example of a PowerPC application running on an Intel machine. It doesn't get much more PowerPC than this. This is id Software's Doom 3 running on an iMac running Snow Leopard. Now, I will demonstrate something to you guys in a minute, but first let's just get into a little bit of the game. Playing these games via Rosetta is not the most ideal way to play them at all. It's still not a native application, it's technically emulation. But, you know, if you don't have a fully loaded PowerPC machine to play them on, then, you know, it can be definitely a viable alternative. So, the game boots and works pretty much flawlessly. This isn't really designed for games as such. You know, it's more for things like Microsoft took a while to bring out a universal binary version of Office, for instance. You know, that sort of thing. That's what Rosetta was for. And, you know, same for Adobe stuff and that. But, you know, Intel versions were hot on the heels, and we all know the story of how Apple converted. So this is Doom 3 running.
to Mars.
So,
New arrivals need to check in at reception.
Here we are. Not running the smoothest, but we weren't expecting it to. This is Doom 3, at least running. And this would not boot on Lion. Obviously the iMac is not the most graphically capable of machines out there. But it's running, as you guys can see.
I'm gonna need you to step on one of those red squares on the floor for a bio scan. This will only take a second. Okay, let me get this started.
I could probably crank down the settings even further to get it to run a little smoother. It's already running in quite a low resolution.
Welcome to Mars. First time? You can just leave your bag there. I'll have it set up your quarters. Okay, there's a few things we need to take care of first. This is your personal data assistant. You'll need this to access all secure areas. If you get clearance for any security zones, it'll download directly. It's important.
So folks, there we go. That's an example of a PowerPC app running. And what I'm going to do is just show you guys, just in case there are a few viewers out there that aren't quite sure, let's take a look at the game that I just installed. It's of course Doom, so if we jump into my applications folder directly, it's in a folder called Doom 3. This is the no CD crack. I always put a little 2 after the original. If I try to load this one, it'll probably ask me for a CD. Yeah, it just won't load at all. Whereas this one will boot straight away. But if we do Command I to get info on this one, in application, there we go, application PowerPC. That is of course showing you that Rosetta is indeed up and running and working. So any PowerPC applications that I have will now run on this iMac, which is fantastic. If you look at an included application, such as Front Row for instance, this will say kind application universal, or also known as UB, universal binary. This means it's written for Intel and PowerPC. I don't know if any of these built-in apps would be Intel only. Universal and QuickTime, Intel, there we go. QuickTime's an Intel one, of course, because we never saw this version of QuickTime on PowerPC, never ever. QuickTime 10, at least I don't know, we definitely didn't. So yeah, application Intel, written for Intel through and through, no questions asked. So yeah, this opens up the door to running so many more applications on this machine. Unfortunately, there are pros and cons to both Lion and Snow Leopard in terms of support. So dual booting them is definitely handy. Not the most convenient thing in the world, but it opens up the door to some slightly older apps. And it makes the whole machine a little bit more versatile. So that's it, folks. That is a pretty basic Snow Leopard install. There was not a lot of depth to this video at all, but I hope you guys have found it interesting. It's something that I wanted to do, so I thought I'd bring you guys along for the ride, and it was an excuse to talk about some things in the past and how Apple has changed in various ways, and to chat about some previous versions of OS X and their various differences between each other. It's also been a fun little refresh for myself. I've been far too disconnected from my nerdy lifestyle for quite some time now. I've just been so busy with other things. I hope I can continue to sort of pump out videos like this, at least on a sort of semi-regular basis. That would be very, very nice. And a huge thanks to the support from everyone on Twitter. Massive thanks for saying hello, everyone. I really, really do appreciate it, and it just shows the continued support. You know, yeah, means a lot, and sorry for the delay. Hope you've all enjoyed this video, and as always, I will see you in the next video, and I really hope there isn't a 6-week wait for the next one. Next couple of weeks or something will be good. Next one is probably introducing the new little one, so fingers crossed that all goes okay, and I will check in with you guys as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. Take it easy, everyone.